What's up, YouTube? It's me, the Artisan MC, and I'm here to give you my reaction review to X-Men 97 Season 2, Episode 3, Rise of Apocalypse. Well, I've showed this two other times, but I will show it now, which is the Rise of Apocalypse trade. I remember reading this story when it came out, and I really enjoyed it because it was the origin of Apocalypse, how he is the first mutant, and what his powers actually were in the world that he was in. I'm a big fan of Egypt and Egyptian mythology and culture, so it was right up my alley. Apocalypse is one of my favorite X-Men villains, so I was down to read the story. Seeing how that story is adapted into this animation makes me appreciate Bo DeMayo writing it. I can tell you that right off the bat. Watching this episode seemed longer than the last two episodes in a shorter amount of time because of one thing that you can be able to tell from watching this whole series. Things that Bo DeMayo writes has more dialogue in it. It's not as much action. What I'm seeing so far in these three episodes, my complaint on the first episode is that it seemed really rushed. Everything happening in it seems really quick, really rushed along. And characters don't use people's names. To me, that means the person who wrote the episode doesn't know these characters' names at all. That's why they're not even introduced or anything like that. So action happens, and that's what you're supposed to be excited about. And it's some regurgitated action that we've already seen before in the first episode of X-Men 97 Season 1. So I'm writing that episode off as being one of the episodes that Bo DeMayo did. The second episode has a little bit of story. There is more action in it because you get this whole scene with Jubilee, but it doesn't seem like it's the same level as what was happening in the first season of X-Men 97. It seems like a smaller story. Even though I enjoyed the X-Force and X-Factor little going against each other, these are two of my favorite X-Men teams, it still seemed really small. Really small. And going over stuff that we just may have done last season. This episode, though, you can tell Bo DeMayo was writing this episode because the conflict that arises in the situations that the characters end up in, just seeing it on the screen as a comic book fan is like, this is epic and that's crazy. Seeing En Sabah Nur on the screen before he's become Apocalypse and Magneto coaching him on humanity and mutants, like, oh my God, what the that's like a nightmare. Two of your favorite X-Men villains, and one is coaching the other one in the past. I'm like, that's not going to work. What are you doing, bro? Woo, he gonna hate you forever. If you know anything about Apocalypse, Apocalypse is immortal. They should just make the comic and call it the Immortal Apocalypse. He is immortal. Pretty much. So he can hold a grudge. He will go down for his apocalypse, sleep his hibernation, and he'll wake up on a bad one again with you. It'll be on forever. So seeing the two of them on the screen together and one coaching the other one and trying to teach the other one is like, oh, this is a nightmare. And because of that, you have the other characters in the show reacting to it too. It's not just something that happens and nobody mentions it. No, you got Xavier's like, bro, what are you doing? This is not gonna work. This is not the move. What are you doing? And that's the audience too. Like, they ain't supposed to be on the same side. It's funny. Now, the introduction is something that I enjoyed, that if you know X-Men, Marvel history, or anything like that, is the fact that in this time frame, the Pharaoh that En Sabah Nur is actually fighting against is Kang. It's Kang the Conqueror. The Chronopolis that he lives in, that sphere, that's usually a signature of Kang. And the Pharaoh was one of his first roles that he took on when he traveled back in time. That's why he has robots. That's why he has this big Chronopolis and he's looking for all this stuff. He's from the future. He's from the far future, back in the past, making himself a pharaoh. So if you are a Marvel fan and know the characters and stuff like that, that's fun for you to see the pharaoh. Yes, Morph turning into characters you know from other places in the Marvel universe is fine, but this is the character himself. That was cool. Getting to see Apocalypse's strength and seeing some of his innate mutant powers is fun for me. That was the fun of reading that book. Because for the longest time, I always wondered then what was Apocalypse's real power? What real power did he actually have? If it's all technology and the celestial stuff that he has, what was his real power? He was already on a scale of his own, being the first mutant already. So everybody else can, in some ways, be his descendants, but he's never passed. So that was fun. The dialogue in this one is rich because you get the conflict and the arguments happening between Xavier and Magneto about what Magneto is trying to do with En Sabah Nur, and Xavier not agreeing. But Magneto being able to make a strong case of taking their worst enemy and turning him into the advocate of Xavier's dream. That is like, bro, why would you even think that? And having those two characters debate that, that's the fun of it. That was not something that was happening in the last two episodes. You were not getting dialogue on that kind of level. It was not that damn deep. Reason being is the people who did those first two episodes don't know these characters, don't know these stories, don't know these internal conflicts or anything like that. They don't. They know the action. They know some of the names of the characters, but they don't know these characters as this character would never do this. They would not do this. They would not behave in this manner. I love this episode. This episode was good for those reasons. Seeing the turn and seeing Sabah Nur go break kind of bad, it's like, look, it's the third episode, bro. I've seen two people get blasted. Two people got, excommunicated from the X-Men show already. I'm like, man, they ain't pulling no punches with killing folks this time around. Like, holy cow. People was eating it. So that was interesting, to say the least. Also, how you know it's a Bo DeMayo thing, the action actually means something. The action actually has a point. Because this whole episode, I was wondering when Bishop was going to show up. And when it was time for Bishop to show up, I wasn't expecting it. But I was happy to see him on the screen. Came in clutch, right? It's not just a display of powers. It is a display of who these people are, who these characters are. Now, this episode ends on a cliffhanger, which I'm completely fine with, but it ended in a way that I was already trying to figure out what was happening. It's like, okay, this might happen, and this might happen here, and this is why these things are happening, right? Without telling you too much. And now I'm excited to see the next episode to see if I'm right, to see what actually happens next with these X-Men, because although it was a good plan, Magneto, did not work, bro. It could never have worked. So now you have to think about what part of what En Sabah Nur does is actually influenced by Magneto. That's messed up. That's kind of messed up to think of. Maybe you put him on this path because you're altering the past. Now, the other thing I like in this that lets you know this is a Bo DeMayo writing production instead of just seeing displays of powers, you get to see how the powers work. And what I got in this episode to prove that was Xavier doing his telepathic thing, going into somebody's mind. What that mindscape looks like, what he encounters in that mindscape, how he tries to find answers and whatnot. That is something that comes from somebody who reads the comics, because that is usually what you see in the comic books, and understands how these characters' powers work, so you can get visuals like that. Right? I told you, I like Nightcrawler as a character. Been seeing it for years. Last season in X-Men 97 was the first time you got to see what it looks like to travel with Nightcrawler through his BAMF, to see what that looked like and what that effect is on people. You got to see it through Wolverine's eyes getting pulled through. It's like, what? That is crazy. These are things that I love from geeks who work on properties, because they put little nuances in there like that to give you something more to chew on as a fan of this stuff. They've always wondered about it, but they're in a position to put it somewhere where they can decide what it's going to be. And here it is. It's like seeing the inside of Slave One for the first time and seeing how this rotates. Like, how is he sitting up there, but he went in through the back? How does that work? It's fun. It's fun. So this episode is probably the best episode for me so far. The funniest one was episode 2, because the intro made me laugh with the X-Force 97. But this has been the best episode so far because of the writing of the character, and not because they had a big old fight at the end of it. No, this one was better. So now I look forward to seeing episode 4, part 2 of Rise of Apocalypse, and see how that shakes out, because the other 2 were rushed. I don't know what happened, but those other 2 were rush jobs, straight up rush jobs. And if you watch it, you can tell, because when you get to this one, you can see the tempo. You can see every scene building on the other, and what was happening in the other being relevant to what's happening in this one. This is something done by a competent writer, while the other 2 were just, bright flashing lights. So thank you, Brother May. I'm sorry you're gone, bro. But God willing, you'll get to work on this stuff again. And or it'll go down in flames, and then that'll just be it. But this last episode I really enjoyed. Hope you enjoy it too. I'll be looking for episode 4 this week. But that's it for now on my reaction. Like, share, subscribe, support the stream if you feel so inclined. And if you want to watch the full watch along of me watching this episode and reacting to it in real time, go ahead and go to the Patreon. The link will be in the description. And it is Shop Talk with Artisan MC. And you will be able to watch the full unedited parts, even with the unedited parts of this review. So with that, I'm going to go on. I got another show to watch and record, another review to do. So I will see you guys next time. Peace.